Hey guys, this video will be a rebroadcast of a stream I did on Twitch. If you guys don't follow me over there, go ahead and follow me on Daniel Norton Photographer. We do these live editing sessions in Capture One most Sundays, 3 p.m. I'm going to be doing more stuff on Twitch too, so if you're interested in kind of live streaming and getting involved in the conversation, go ahead and follow me over there. But without further ado, let's get to it. So this was a all about using constant light, because I get this question a lot, and unfortunately, I think that people want. Oh, I did use some inexpensive stuff near the end, but just like my strobes, my constant lights are the more expensive kind. They're dado lights primarily. And you may just look at it as, for somebody like me, let's say that I've been working a long time and I know how to use flash really well. Then why would I bother? Well, there's just certain qualities to certain kinds of lights. And I think the more we light and the more we work, we, um, we can find those little bits and differences and they make a difference in our work. I never like to say better or worse. But there's just something special about certain lights, and that's why I gravitate towards them. So that's kind of what this was about. And of course, we got crazy and goofy and stuff near the end. But oh yeah, yeah. It was not cheap. Well, there is a version that's not Thunderbolt. So if you don't have Thunderbolt, Lauren's watching. Yes, now everybody knows because I have my screen. I'll turn my notifications off so that. Oh, what did happen there? I can't do it. Do not disturb. Don't disturb me, Lauren. Lauren's watching, so I can't say anything bad about her. Not that I ever would, anyways. So yeah, different lights for different things. So we were there, and some of these are going to start off real simple, and there's also some areas here where I kind of demonstrated like blur and stuff that probably isn't good because we're showing the negative of it. So we'll toss those, but we're probably gonna have a pretty high percentage of keepers here. So we're just gonna go through and do our basic editing. Now, the last time I did one of these live things, I did it for my studio and mistakenly switched the thing, and I deleted my. If you remember from like I don't know a month and a half ago, I created my own presets, not presets, but my own editing suite over here, and I did not back it up. So this is a good lesson to learn. So we're back to using the conventional setup. And I am in Capture One 21 now. I had to upgrade because I was using the Nikon Z6 II, which does not work. The raw files do not work with Capture 120. And powers presets. 95% off. Yeah, you can get my presets. All right, so, here we go. As usual, we've got a pretty clean exposure right off the bat. And I'm looking at this, and even though this is very acceptable, like very good, I always tend to work my levels a bit. And we can see over here I have my levels. I'm always going to bring my light level over a little bit because I like to bring those highlights up. I want it to really pop. It gives three-dimensionality to it. So I'm going to bring those up until I start to see some of the highlights pop. And again, I kind of jiggle it back and forth to get it where I kind of like it. Right about there is probably good. There's definitely people that will tell you to move it to this part of the thing, but to me, it really depends on the image. So I typically drag it over a bit, maybe 10 or so, and then I grab my middle, my neutral, right, and I kind of, again, same thing. I shake it back and forth to get it kind of where I want it, and then I come over and I grab my darks. I almost always have to bring some black in because when you start messing with the other ones, you can see that the black itself started to get like gray. So we want our black to be black. So we're going to drop that down just a smidge, and I think that looks better. Yeah, that looks good. I'm going to check my highlights here to make sure I'm not losing any detail. I want them bright, but I don't want to lose detail, so I'm looking, up here, you'll see the numbers up here. I'm making sure that we don't get 255s across the board. In this case, there might be cases where you want absolute white, but I do not want that here. I typically don't care if I have absolute black. Like this is absolute black here. See, it's 0, 0, 0, 0. That doesn't bother me in this image. It's super dark hair in a shadow in this image, so it doesn't matter to me. If you cared about that, then you'd have to bring the exposure up of the whole thing, but then I think you start getting a really flat image. So I'm not concerned about really black blacks, but sometimes I typically don't want really whites. All right, so there. Once we have that, oh, look at this, I got ahead of myself. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to hit Command A, and I'm going to select all the images, right? And we're going to press the number 3, basically to rate them all with 3 stars. because what I'll do is I'll do a subtractive edit. So I'm not going to look for the images I like the best. I'm just going to remove the ones that aren't worth delivering to the client, right? So in this case, it's fine, so it's good. But if I didn't like this one, I could hit the number 2. Well, hold on. See, once again, I got to myself. I'm going to set a search up, 3 stars or higher. And then if I hit, let's say, number 2 here, that image would disappear, right? It doesn't delete it. It just takes it out of the search. And then what I'm going to do is, in the end, only the ones that are left in the search those are my favorites, or the ones I'm going to deliver. So I will undo that by hitting Command Z. All right, so we like that image. We like the way it looks. I like what I did to it. I'm primarily using the same lighting for this first setup, so I'm going to hit Shift Command C to copy all those settings. And I'm going to move down to the next image, and I'm going to apply them. And if it looks good, which I think it does, we're good. Now, the actual tone of her face is going to change when she turns, right? Like here, you see it's a bit brighter. It has to do with the overall contrast of how she is positioned to the light. When she's more flat to the light, we can see that there's more gradual change. So they're not going to match perfectly. But if we look at the general areas, this is going to be good. And I think this is good. Again, I can come up here, just make sure that I'm not blowing out any of these highlights, which I'm not. And that looks good to me. I like that one. You know, here we are going horizontal. You know, you got to have a thumbnail, right? Again, I paste the same settings. Yeah, I'm not loving this one. No particular reason, but I know we have tons of good ones. This is better. And we paste the same settings. Now, I did this. They literally just handed me this camera right before we did the thing, so I didn't set it up with any of this like vignette control or whatever. So you can see that oftentimes with mirrorless cameras and stuff, they've got built-in settings that like know what lens you're using and they'll adjust to it. I had that all turned off. So you can actually, here I'm going to go out of my range here a bit. There is actually a lens. Is it one of the normal things? Do I have to find it? All right, I'm going to find it. Okay, so I'm going to go over here. I'll add it to my thing. So we're going to go here, and I want to find the dealio that deals with my lenses. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to say, let's see, preferences, move tool. No, I don't want to be there. I'm in the wrong spot. I need to do it up here. Add tool. Lens correction. Okay, so if we're feeling like, again, there's too much vignette on the sides here with this lens, I can now come in and I can actually mess around a bit with my lens correction. It actually does know what lens I was using and did actually make some correction just as soon as I did that, which actually looks better. But I can come over here and I can actually take my, I guess the fall off is what I want to mess with. And I can start to bring that vignette away. So I'm getting a bit of a vignette in the corner, you know. Oh, you know, so that should be good. And of course I can shift the thing. All right, so there you go. So if you are getting like a vignette like that, you can definitely mess around a bit there. We also have this like kind of distortion correction. Whoa, whoa. I'm not going to use that. All right. So lots of cool stuff we can do. And we can also adjust the sharpness, which again, I'm not that worried about. All right, cool. So I'll copy those settings because I like what I did there on the corners. Angle piercement. This is kind of a weird angle, so I don't like that. Let's see. Oh, I got some talk. Let's see. If you'd like to try Capital, that's me. If you have any suggestions on how to edit quicker that you know is helpful with your workflow. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean, if I wasn't doing a live stream, I would, you know, these things would take an hour for me to do in person. When I'm talking to you guys, I want 20 minutes. Really, the key to which is kind of what you're hitting on here, to editing quickly is to be consistent in how you shoot. Because these images are all basically, you know, I'm not making dramatic changes, and I'm making sure that even when I change the lighting, that my exposure and stuff stays the same. So, you know, if I change the lighting completely, I still keep my neutral where it is, right? The neutral is what I really care about. That's my skin tone, right? If I always keep that neutral where it's supposed to be, you know, in the correct exposure, then when I go to my new images, even if they're lit differently, they should still take generally the same settings. So once you get your base settings down, it should be much faster. You know, here we were messing around with a lot of shadow. This is obviously, here's an example of like the highlights are definitely blown here. Let's go back here. well, let's go here to our regular tools so we can mess with it. You know, we can see that where like, I mean, well, actually, still there's detail there. Wow, it does a good job, huh? It's way too harsh. I think we shot several images here. We were setting this up. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So I remember this from the thing. Like I was just saying, remember when you're doing a demo, when I'm doing a demo, when you're doing a demo, you know, we're building it up. So a lot of times you're going to see images that aren't complete. Every time someone posts a pic with body parts that are cut off on them. Yes, that does happen. I do like to cut off body parts. 1 star, then 0 if you don't want it. 2 if I edit it, and 3 if I really like it. 4 if I... Oh, that's interesting. So that's cool. But see, I don't like to. This actually speeds up my editing process too, by the way, which is kind of ties into the other question. What you're saying there, Zort 70. So I do exactly what you're saying. I do have different levels of it, and what I would do is once we go through this whole thing once, eliminating everything, I then mark everything 4 stars, and I go through again hitting 3, and then 5 stars, and I go through again hitting 4. So that way, in the end, everything that's 5 stars are the ones I'm gonna like keep like my favorites. The reason why I don't do that now is because I feel like, again, like I might look in this and be like, oh man, I really like this, 5 stars. But then I get 3 down and I'm like, oh no, this one's way better. And then I'm like, oh, I gotta go back up and change this one again. So that's why I don't ever say I really like something until I've seen everything. So I always go through once, really kind of with just an eye at removing things. Okay, I do like that one actually. And this doesn't, I mean, I'll paste those same settings just to see what happens. But you see, I think we're blowing that highlight out now because it's a different lighting. But it's still pretty good. I actually think this one doesn't require anything, to be honest with you. You know, I'm happy with this like this. We got detail there. If you wanted to bring a little bit more of the shadows up, you could go here into your mids and kind of crank this up. But I think because the way I lit it, what you're going to get is, if you watch, I'll bring this up all the way, it will just look bad. Like this here is not good lighting. This is just fill, right? So if I give too much detail on this side of the face, it's going to look terrible. So I don't want that. I want it where it was. I want it dark. That was really just there to get this reflection of this you know, cheekbone, to give her some depth. Yeah, I don't think this requires anything, so I'm just going to leave it. This is the same lighting, basically, but I'm not loving the composition. I like that better. I brought it up a little bit so I could see her face, so I'll keep that one. Oh, really big. Yeah, no, not like that one. All right, here we go. So as she was coming around, I was realizing that lighting wasn't really working there, so I kind of moved it. I think we added another light. You can see it. We can see over here. We've got this like kind of punchy light over here. We're using, I think, 2 softboxes at this point, which is kind of cross lighting, which isn't exactly how I would normally light, but I think it actually kind of works here. Though this image is a bit flat, so I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna start like before. I'm gonna paste those same settings, but I can see that I want my mids up a bit more. So actually, just gonna start from scratch here. Drive the brights over, bring my mids up a bit, right? So that kind of flattens everything. Then I'm going to come back around and bring my darks back down so I can keep that darkness, but with more contrast. This is still a bit hot for me. So instead of bringing I do want my like lights over so I get the rest of the highlights up. Just this one is hot. So I think I can probably fix that pretty easily with my highlight recovery in the high dynamic range. I just want to dump it down a little bit. See the difference? Just bring it down a little bit. I don't want it to be gray, but I want to make sure I have like enough detail in it. Like that's probably pretty good. Yeah, I mean the image is meant to be dark, right? So it looks good. This one is the same. This is now also, I feel like this is a bit too dark. Here I like the way the balance is. The image itself is just dark, so I think I'm going to grab my exposure slider at this point and just bring it up a smidge. Yeah, see, that's flattening it too much for me. So I'm going to now go back down and grab those darks again. Bring that back in. Because I really just want the face to come up. And I'm actually going to bring my lights over a bit too. See, I'm just popping, causing dimensionality by moving my highlights and shadows. And again, every time I do something like that, I'm going to copy it. Because the next one is probably going to be... I think we had like some weird powder issue here. Yeah, some powder on her face. So we're going to get rid of that one because Daniel doesn't retouch that. There we go. He fixed it after that. I'm going to drop that exposure back down here. Cool. Oh, I see people talking to me and I'm not saying anything. Sorry, I'm ignoring y'all. Um, elbows. That's right. This year is all about cutting off elbows. From Virginia. All right. I want for a touch of light in the hair, separate background. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, funny face. Funny face. Okay. What I was doing here? I guess I was switching over to a harder light, which I'm not really favoring here. Because it's causing shine under her eyes, which is not really the most appealing thing. So get rid of those. See, with the face turned, it's different, right? We don't get that angle. But the whole image is a little harsh because I was using like a punchier light. So I think in order to kind of bring it down, I'm not softening it per se. I'm just going to leave it a little darker because darker images just feel less harsh. You know, as a general rule. So if you're using kind of a bit of a harsher image, like you see people use like a kind of on-camera flash, like blasty light. If you leave the exposure hot, it tends to look really bad. But if you kind of drop it a smidge, see how that same harsh light now feels more rich. Good. Okay, there it's too much though, right? So I'm going to do this one fresh. This one I think we need a similar thing. Again, we're using kind of a harsh light. I always bring my lights up, which might seem counterproductive at first, but I want that contrast. So, I want the highlights to pop, like on her eye, on her forehead. So in order to do that, I need to actually bring them up higher than they would normally go, so they can max in with the. Yeah, we're getting really crunchy here. I like it. This is a little more saturated than I would normally go, but I think that the warmth of her skin is really beautiful. So I think I'll keep this one like that. When you start really crunching the images down, you'll see your saturation really pop. Okay. No. Yeah. Okay. Do better. So here, part of these I'm just getting rid of. That's too dark. See, again, because the position of her head, some of them are going to look better than others as far as the brightness, lightness part. So you're going to just want to watch that. Smile. There's it blurry because I was trying to catch that action. All right, now we're serious again. It's very serious. Okay, that's too much. All right, so sometimes you reach a different area. Like I switched the light source clearly because I can see it it's softer now, or it switches position anyways. I think now I'm going to start from scratch. And we will go from there. All right, let me know if there's any questions, guys. I know I might be going fast. I can't really tell. I have had a lot of coffee this morning. So, and when I say that, it's a lot because I always drink a lot of coffee. Okay. All right, so I'm bringing my lights over. Again, I'm dancing the mids around to get them where they should be. Like right around there is good. And then I'm always going to bring just a little bit of the blacks in. Just a little bit. That just gives it that pop, right? That was good. Oh, it looks like we brought a little bit of a fill light in here. Again, I'm just pasting the settings for these. This one looks a little bit hot now because of that fill light. I'm not going to adjust it on the exposure though. I think I'm actually going to come into my mids and do it. Oh, no. I'm going to do it in the exposure. Because doing it in the mids was just killing my contrast. It's always a trade-off which one you want to use, right? All right, so these I'm just pasting the same settings. And again, for this first burst of going through the images, excuse me, I try to go fast. Like if something catches my eye and it doesn't, like I don't look for little tiny mistakes. I'm looking for, does this image seem like, oh, okay, good. If it immediately catches me as decent, I move on. If it doesn't immediately catch me, I get rid of it. Like that's pretty much how we do this. I'm not dwelling on the images at first. I'm just getting them basically where I think they look good. And if I like them, so I'm copying that setting, I'm bringing it down to this one. Then I'm going to keep them. And if I don't, then I'm not. Right, again, they need to just grab me. It's kind of a gut thing, like a gut feeling at this point. I'm not I'm not going in for, like, for instance, if you're looking at this image, you might be like, oh, well, I like this, but, what about this, like, line right here in her eye because of the way her face is? I'm not dealing with that right now. Like again, this is stuff that I deal with only once I decide I'm going to use the image. This is really the first rip through. Because generally speaking, there's going to be images that don't have issues. This is a fun one. That don't have some of the issues that you see, and you're going to waste a lot of time trying to edit out things that you don't care about because later you're not going to use those images. This I like the lighting, but I feel like it's not like just clicking pose wise, so I'm going to kill that one. Yeah, see, this is better. There we go. Yeah, nice like that, nice and simple. Okay, but if you were going to, because I know people are gonna ask, so if you let's say you were looking at this one and you were like, I mean, personally, I don't tend to remove stuff like this because I think it looks, that's how people look. But if you if you want to look like Instagram and you want to get rid of that like kind of shadow there, what you're gonna want to, what you can do. I mean, I say this all the time, which clearly I'm not sponsored by Caption One because I would do that in Photoshop because that's just how I normally do it. But you can do it here, probably just using the healing brush. This is the healing brush up here. I'm just going to literally paint on over the area, and it will pick a spot just like Photoshop, and then you can kind of move it around if you feel like you prefer a different area. Oh, oh no, I did a better job than Photoshop. Yeah, I mean that doesn't look bad. That's as far as I would go, honestly, guys. I think when you start doing too much of this, it just starts to look really, really fake. Like I could see people trying to get rid of it completely, like, oh no, I'm going to add this here too. But I think at a certain point, it just starts to look. Oh, also guard from a bad spot. It just starts to look very unreal. So for me, that's about as far as I would go there. Of course, obviously, you can remove little blemishes as well. I guess one advantage of doing it here versus, let's say, doing it in Photoshop is, typically speaking, like for me, anyways. Well, first of all, if something's not moving, like that's just a product, you can do the retouching on one image, and then you can just apply it to all the other ones, right? But the other advantage here is that then you don't have to keep a bunch of exported files in different sizes. Because when we are messing with anything in Capture One, we're messing with the raw image, which means that I just did that to this image. If I want it in 5 different sizes, I can just export it that way, give it to the client, and just keep the raw image. I don't need to keep all the different sizes. Like you might be like, the client might be like, oh, I want an 8x10 of that one, and then you export it, that size, and then like later you're like, oh man, they want a bigger one. So if you didn't just export it huge, full size, to Photoshop, then you would have to do it again. And if you did do it and they never asked for another print, you have all these giant files. So I just think there is reasons to do basic retouching in Capture One, and it's getting way, way better than it ever was. So if you do have Capture One, this is 21, which I have not explored all the features yet, but it's just getting better and better. Oh yeah, we went into really hard light here, I think. We were like, oh, hard light. I think it might have been a full moon. Or maybe it was a week before a full moon. Let's see. When I still was young, field engineer, I used to get coffee. Ah, nice. Oh my God, 17 copies. Wow. Oh yeah, no. You don't drink coffee for the taste. At least I don't. I like to just have a warm drink in my hand. So tea is also a very good option. But I tend to do coffee because it just feels more readily. Also, when you buy, this is you'll learn something about me here. Being in New York City, like you go into a deli to get a coffee, or any place, right? And like they gotta make you the coffee, and they charge you too much for it, of course. But you get your coffee. When you get tea, they literally just give you water and a tea bag, and I just look at it, just like, this doesn't feel like it's worth the money they're charging because it costs as much as the coffee. So it's probably psychological, but that's why I'm cheap. Okay, good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we're creating kind of interesting mood here. Oh yeah, then we started messing with the background. Okay, that's a bit dark. Oh yes, I remember what was going on here. So basically what was happening is we're using this hard light with barn doors, and it's spreading like this, right? I don't know. You probably can't really see that. Can I draw on this? Yeah, it's going like this, right? And I don't know what I just did. whatever it was, I'll undo it. Um, and the problem is that it was hitting her basically right at on her chest, which because of the angle of her chest to the camera and to the light, it was actually reflecting back much brighter than her face. So we kind of messed around a little bit to try to fix that, and the main problem was we could have flagged it off, but the issue is that we were using a reflector to get light in underneath, and when we flagged it, of course, we blocked the reflector. So we did eventually get it how I liked it, but it took a few shots to get that. So, again, if you could come in here and darken this if it really bothered you. To be honest, it doesn't bother me as much now that I'm looking at it as it did in the moment. But if that bothered you, you certainly can come in here. And the same way we did the healing, you could do an adjustment layer and just paint darkness. Basically paint an exposure on it. I guess I can just do that right now. I'm not going to take the time to do it really neat, but I'll just do it to show you guys. What we would do here is we come in and I'd go, let's see. Oh, I always do it that way. That's not what I want. Oh, actually, no, nope, that's a full adjustment layer. I want to do new empty adjustment layer. You want it to be empty. That's important. And then we're going to take our brush and we'll paint in the area that we want to adjust. And again, you would be more precise than this. I'm like painting our shirt and stuff, so we're not going to. It will do a pretty good job, like kind of finding the edges. And then with that, right, I'm on that layer, I can then come in and do whatever adjustment I want to do. I guess what I could just do, to show you guys quickly, I would just do exposure maybe. We can just start to bring it down. Yeah, it's not actually terrible. I mean, you can see, because I didn't do a good job like blocking it out, we can see the exposure on the shirt's a little bit dark, like right there. But again, for a quick thing, if you just got it really neat with your adjustment, you definitely could do that. And you could bring it down as much as you want. If you start to bring it down too much, it won't look natural, clearly. Because it should be brighter just because of the nature of the beast. So something like that's not terrible. And of course, we could also go back to our layer. Where did I leave it? We're on the layer there. I could grab that paintbrush and I could also paint it up here. Now, this is not the exact same difference in exposure. So if you want to be really super precise, what you would have to do, see how it got much darker. So that's just not going to fly. You'd want to make another layer for that. So, and again, I'm not going to do that right now because I'm just showing you guys. So don't actually. Again, I would do that on more of a finished shot. And then, like I say, eventually we got a shot that we liked. So I think the trick to most of this stuff, really, guys, is that, and you can see some of the messing around when I'm doing it here because we're doing it live and we're kind of demoing it, is you want to solve these problems before you start shooting. You want to get to a point where it's good. That way you don't have to spend a lot of time in post doing it. Here we basically made adjustments and added so that if you look now, it's still bright, but it's not nearly, proportionately as bright up here. So it doesn't stick out like it did before, although I don't want that image though. Okay, let's go up here. Get back to the proper tool so I don't screw stuff up. We can see now that we're basically cleaner. Let's get, I don't love that one. All right, so let's go here and let's get some adjustments on this bad boy. I'm going to drag my brights over so I get my highlight pop. Then I'm going to grab my neutrals to give myself kind of a flatter image. And then I'm going to grab my darks just to bring the whole thing into a contrast area that I like. I mean, she is wearing, a black top and she has dark hair, so we want the whole thing to have a dark feel. Dark lipstick. There we go. Yeah, pretty nice. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's true. This is super important, and because I'm reading it, Zort 70 she has skin to take the hard light without any problems. It's true. Hard light is going to bring detail out. So people, you've got to, casting is so important when you're shooting. I think that's one of those things that, like, I mean, I make jokes, maybe I'm not as specific about it, but like when I say you don't just throw up a softbox and get whoever in front of it, is because you really should like people based on what their strengths. If you have somebody that has skin that can really take the hard light, like not a lot of first, not a lot of texture, so not a lot of pimples and stuff, not a lot of discolorization, like if the skin needs to be more even, in order to really get away with using hard light without too much issue. So just keep that in mind. when you're selecting your light sources, right? You want to pick stuff that will work with the subject that's in front of you. Yeah, I was trying to get that good circle around her head. Yeah, see here, and depending on where she's standing and the angle, sometimes this light here really starts to bring. Now I'm like dwelling on it. What I would probably do is, I guess I don't even really have to do that. I can just go like this. No, I need to do a layer first. Do my adjustment layer, empty adjustment layer, and again, same thing. I can just go with the paintbrush. I think I should be able to. Trying to remember where the adjustments are. They literally just got. Oh, here we go. Hard size, opacity, auto. I think that's what we want. Auto mask. Yeah. So auto mask will help with the edges. So since I'm painting inside this shirt, now that I have that on, I should be able to get a better lock without going too crazy with the auto mask on. I mean, you still want to be, as precise as possible, but that should help a bit. Yeah, you see how I'm clicking on it so you guys can see how I did a much better job. It's like cleaner. Now, of course, that can look artificial as well, so you still have to be careful with it. Okay. I think what I'm actually going to do is move my mids instead of using the exposure. I'm just doing the exposure to make it easier to show you guys. But I think I'm actually just going to do this first. I think that'll look more natural. Yeah, that looks more natural. But let's see if I get real close to it, if we're going to see a line. Yeah, you see how the line's there? So nothing's perfect, I think there's a feather on it. Go back. Yeah, there's a hardness, flow, airbrush, use pen pressure, which I don't have. So we could use like the hardness. It gave us that. Let's see if I make it a little harder and a little smaller. I'm gonna come in and see if I can paint in. Sorry, too small. Yeah. See if I can clean that edge up a little bit. Yeah, not really. I should have done it when I first did it. Yeah. So again, and I'm also looking at this huge where, it depends on how big you're gonna, so yeah, I'm making it worse. Okay. So I'm not gonna do that now, but yeah, that's basically how you could do it with the adjustment. Again, I probably would just do it in Photoshop if I'm 100% honest. I'm definitely much more of a Photoshop person for that stuff. And maybe we'll do that as another. I mean, if you guys are interested in how you do it in Photoshop, then maybe I'll do another live stream and doing stuff in Photoshop. Although I don't usually do much. Let's see. Yeah, we got this. By the way, this background light is a dado light with like a glass projector in it. It's really, really cool. I actually hadn't had any of these glass projection things until maybe a year ago because they're kind of expensive, but man, are they nice, man. Using curves is better than levels. I mean, my thought on that is that anybody who tells you something is better than something else is maybe needs to check their ego. I don't. Now that being said, when I used to edit in Lightroom, I used curves. So I find that in Capture One, I like the way the levels. Oh, what just happened there? Oh, I hold on. See that? I copied the adjustment layer rather. Okay, so what you would do there, so it's here, right? So there's a couple ways to not have that happen, but the simplest way is to go over to the image and go copy and apply adjustments, and then just go over and unclick the levels, and then just say okay, apply. Now we come over here, we paste it. It should just be that one. Yeah, there we go. Okay, sorry, back to this. So yeah, I mean, you can actually I'll do one in curves. Just I'll try to do it anyways. I don't find curves work as well for me in Capture One, but again, it comes down to how people do things. I try to do it the simplest way possible. And I'm also not sure I understand that you have everything that you have there and then more. Maybe they're using all this stuff, the Luma and stuff. I don't really use that. I guess if you get that far into it, typically curves you're trying to create it. I'm trying to create it, which the way I do it. Like if I'm going to do a basic curve, what I'm usually going to do is like kind of one of those like S curve dealios. But you can see that even as I'm starting to move it, I'm already getting oversaturated in the shadows. Yeah, like I just don't feel like the curves. Maybe I'm just not as good at it. I mean, but I feel like every change you make in the curves is so extreme. I just feel like the levels is just a cleaner way to work for me. So yeah, I'm not a curves person. Whatever. But I would be wary of anybody who tells you that something is the right way to do it, or better. It's like, what does that even mean, better? I mean, I guess that there could be better in the sense of like least destructive, but at the same time, I don't think that's really an issue here. Okay. Yeah, I guess it does. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not a huge fan of curves, but I just, yeah. Yeah, that's true. If you use a Lumitab, that's true. That wasn't really a fair comparison. I'll do one in a curve. I just don't find curves to be as the way that I like to work. But I mean, hey, listen, if you guys think that it's better for you, you can go ahead and edit some images and show people how to do it. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, I'm not a fan of curves. I just don't like the way it looks, to be honest with you. There's something about using levels that I just feel like works cleaner for me. But I do get that you get a bit more control. Um, I'm just not a huge fan of it. But again, it comes down to what you use. Like I said, when I used to edit in Lightroom, I always use curves. So I just found that levels work better for me in Capture One. And also in Photoshop, I use levels as well. Yeah, yeah. You can do it that way. We'll do a little highlight recovery here, though, because I feel like I didn't get where I wanted to get. We would do that one in curves. Just for you guys. All right, back to the same settings again. All right. We'll change it up a little bit here. It looks soft, doesn't it? Yeah, it is soft. Huh, weird. Oh yeah, here we go, messing around with the hard light. Okay, so that was too much. I tried to, I almost always just try to drop the new settings on there. But if it doesn't work, then I come back in to start again. So again, I'm gonna come over here. I gotta watch that nose highlight. Like I don't want it to blow out, so I'm just gonna bring my lights up a bit and add a bit, I'll go this way. I think I'm actually gonna drop the saturation here too. I think it's feeling a bit saturated for me. Yeah, looks good. Cool. Right. Okay. All right. We got a lot of contrast going on here. I actually like the contrast, so I don't want to mess with it. So I think I'm just going to bring the exposure up a smidge. I find that just the tiniest little bit can make a huge difference. All right, here we go. Too much. All right, so now we're clean, right? We figured out we figure out what we want to do, and we're starting to create something here. But we can see we're a bit hot, so I'm going to come into my mids here. And again, you could do this in any way that you like. You're a curves person, go for it. I'm going to get it basically where I want it. I still feel like it's a smidge hot, and now I'll drop my exposure a bit. But I want to do my levels first so I get my contrast down, because that's really what I'm doing there. I'm really taking contrast into account. Yeah. Oh yeah, and here we switched. We had a light one, RGB light one, so we switched our fill to an active fill, that is red to kind of match the background red. And you can see it's obviously it's giving her a red in the shadow here, but it's also giving obviously a red catch light. And we can see that there. And then it's giving a little red highlight here off her earring. There we go. That looks good. Again, I'm just pasting the same settings. If I find one that red teeth. If I find one that I don't like, I'll ditch it. You know, in the case of like a kind of in the between the moment smiley one, you know, I know that she's gonna want that, so I of course will keep it. If you're working with somebody that you don't think wants stuff like that, then obviously you would toss it. Wow, I am blowing up over here. What's going on? I hope it's not anything important. Oh. Let's see. Eyes closed. No. Bam. Bam. Cool. Very, very, very vampiric. All right. So here I'm liking it. I feel like we might have been getting a bit much on the exposure. And again, I usually like, I always like this nice highlight here to really give the three-dimensionality. But here I think it's a bit much. So I'm going to come in and just grab my highlight recovery and just dial it back a bit. And again, you don't want to do it too much because it can start to look bad. You really got to be careful with it. And if I needed to do it a lot and it wasn't really working, I think it's fine universally. Then again, you could paint a layer in and do it. So remember, any of the stuff you could do as an adjustment layer, if need be. Okay, that's a bit dark. Good. What's interesting here is a lot of it comes down to the mood, the mood that she's projecting, the position of her face, and so many other things determines how dark or light I want it to be. So I am slightly tweaking it, but I'm dropping the same settings on, and then I'm kind of coming back around, and then I'm like, okay, like maybe this one I want to be a smidge brighter, you know, and that's just basically how I'm doing it. So I'm kind of, whereas that I think is actually fine, right? So it really just depends on where her face is for the minor changes. Here I'm actually going to remove the highlight recovery for this one because her nose is not reflecting because of the angle, and I was losing the three-dimensionality of her cheeks. And I'm also going to bring my mids in a bit. We're not sure what's going on here, but that's a good shot to top somebody's head. No, actually, we'll keep that one. That's going to be my desktop picture. All right, good. Nice. I clearly was being comical because that's what I do. I'm not sure I do it on purpose, but people seem to laugh a lot at me. With me, I guess. Yeah, these are good. And again, it's just a finesse, right? Getting it basically where I think it works the best. I'm going to bring down the highlights on her nose a bit. And again, it is universal, so it's bringing it down everywhere. So just be wary of that. If it's not working for you, then don't do it. And again, I'm just dialing down here a little bit at a time. Well, I like that with looking down. Oops, see there? That's way too dark for me. So I'm going to come back and paste those settings on. And I've got minus a quarter of a stop exposure, so I'm just going to dial it back. But if I come back too much, my highlights are going to start to burst. So actually, I'm going to leave this here. And I'm going to come back down to my levels. And I'm going to use that to flatten out the mids a bit. Yeah, this looks good. Good. Do the same thing here. But the other direction. Yeah, there we go. Again, I'm just dancing that mid back and forth. I'm trying to put my highlights up a smidge in this one. I don't have any highlight recovery, but I kind of want it to be a little bit more punchy. Yeah, that's good. You know, and really, again, there's not really a right or wrong here. It kind of comes down to what you want in the image. You know, you may look at this image and be like, oh, I prefer it to be darker or lighter or whatever that I'm doing it, and that's totally fine, you know. Okay. Something happened here. Okay, so we decided to mess around with more intense color. I believe I put a gel on the lights. I must have, because it wouldn't possibly be. Yeah, so it looks like I gelled my lights. Okay, there's an eyes closed. That's not working for me. So now we're really getting into this like dark, almost like no information. And there's no catch light here, which might not work for some people. It kind of, we're going for like more of a spooky feel. That's just been exposure bump. I just wanted to see what it looked like. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to go back. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to give it a little bit more. So now, as I bring these lights in, you see how they're starting to start to get almost like neon-y purple, which is kind of cool. Then I'll bring this across here, and you don't get that with just the exposure bump. I mean, again, you could do it with curves as well, but that's why I don't just use exposure usually. I'm basically getting all my contrast and feel with the levels. And then if I do need to bring the exposure up or down, I can do that from there. But I think it's good here. Oh, I guess I decided that wasn't a good after the first shot. And we just left it in the back. I kind of like that, actually. I don't know. Past Daniel. Why did you do that? Okay, I think we were really messing around here to see what we could find. So some of these are just not... oh, I was trying to get a lens flare. So a lot of these are just basically tests. Okay, I see what I was doing there. Now we're reflecting back the color. All right. Then we gave up on that because that was clearly not working, and we moved her into the weird color in the back. Oh, thank you. Yeah. These are always fun to do live. I know that this one was difficult to watch, of course, because one of the reasons why I love using constant lights, and I use them a lot, but when you're trying to do a video production, obviously the room is lit with constant lights. So if we turn all the lights off, you can't see me. And if we don't turn them off, then they affect the shot. So it's really tricky to do. So shout out to Seth for handling that as best as he could. Because it is not easy. And again, I'm just basing those same settings. These are a little bit kind of weird and abstract, but I thought they were kind of fun. Again, they're just basically a glass gel, for lack of a better word, inside of a data light projector. So you're able to control the sharpness. You can see these lines and stuff back here. This is basically if you sharpen it all the way, it creates like a very distinct pattern, and the more blurry it is, kind of the neater it becomes, right? So you get this like really kind of funky background. And then I guess we're like, no more of that. I always love the abrupt changes. Like, what the heck was I doing? All right, so here we're just clean again. Looks like it's too hot in the highlights for me, and I'm not loving the angle of the lights. I'm just gonna. No, it looks like I shot a few like that. Did I fix it? Yes, I did. Okay, so yeah, I think we're just getting some exposure idea here. Oh, we went warm now. I guess because they're bicolor lights. So again, I'm doing the same thing. Even though her nose is almost at the point where it's going to blow out, I'm still going to drag my lights over, right? And do my best. I'm going to do exactly how I always do it. I'm not sure I'm loving this lighting setup. And then I'm going to use my highlight recovery for the nose. I'm not really sure I'm loving this lighting though, so I'm just going to kind of skip through a few of these. That's just a fun one for her. I'll keep it for that reason. All right. Yeah, these are just more clean. Clean. All right, so let's put that settings on here. Okay, it's a bit hot, but I like the contrast, so I'm going to bring the exposure down. I think that's one thing that people do that maybe isn't the most productive, is that if you're looking at an image, let me reset this one, and you're looking at this and you're like, she's already bright, so I can't really do anything to add contrast or whatever, because if I start to, You know, like my whites are going to go way up. But remember, that's just one part of it, right? So what you want to do is get your overall contrast where you want it and not worry too much about the exposure at the beginning. Because once you get it where you want it, you can then use your exposure to get the overall image. Oops, that's the wrong one. The overall image back to where it needs to be. So keep that in mind. That you can get this kind of contrast even if you start off with an image that's already kind of bright. Well, that's kind of a spooky. Yeah, like these are kind of, oh, nope. No, all that one. And again, I'm just pasting those same settings to see what we get. These are just clean. Make sure I'm not blowing out here. Tight, but I'm not blowing out. Maybe I'll drop a little bit of highlight recovery just to make sure, because her nose looks like it's going to be popping. Yeah. Okay, I'm dropping the exposure a decent amount. I feel like this deserves a darker field than we shot it. We shot it way too flat. If you're going to go dark, you got to embrace the darkness, you know? Oh, that's too much, though. I'm going to put that back on there. I'll jump over here, because I'm dropping almost a stop in the exposure, so... Yeah, these definitely have, like, a darker feel to them. Yeah, not my favorite, but... keep them for this. Yeah, I was doing a lot of stuff with, like, no catch lights, which is kind of unusual for me. Like, they're very, like, dead. Which is kind of just something we were playing with. I think I might actually... I'm just going to drop the saturation a tiny bit here, too. Okay, this is kind of different, so I'm going to come and start over. Yeah, we'll do this one with the curves. All right, let's see. And highlights are getting toasted. Oh, come on. Let's see. Slide this bad boy down a bit. All right, so here we're, you can see I'm just like I'm staying up in the lights and my curve so I can kind of fix that. You see what's happening with the nose? I'm kind of sliding it up and down to find where I want to slide it over. So we can kind of do that without having to rip into the highlight recovery. There we go. The whole thing looks a little flat. No, I think it's probably pretty good there. And obviously, guys, you can combine things, right? So I am using the curves here. Yeah, that was pretty good, right? There you go, curves. I am going to bring the exposure up a smidge. There we go. And maybe I will actually go in here and just highlight recovery just a tiny bit. Yeah. Yeah, because it's just graying out if I go too far on the curves. All right, so I got to kind of mix the two. That looks pretty good. Whenever you're dealing with like highlight and shadow, it's good to just kind of like stop and then kind of squint at it. That's really what matters. Yeah. All right, there you go. A little curve action. No, I mean, hard to watch meaning that like it got dark and stuff and you guys couldn't really see. I mean, maybe that's not the case. All right. Well, where are we? I lost my image that I was working on. I lost my curve image. Did I go the wrong way? There it is. Okay. There we go. That's pretty good. So let's go here. Basically similar. Boom. Boom. Now I think it's a little flat. I'm just gonna drop the exposure. That looks nice. Again, copying it. Boom. Boom. You know, some of these come down to adjusting the exposure. Again, based on where her face is, because if she's in the light, she's technically a bit brighter. Um, yeah, again, I'm just pasting that same curves action that we just did because it's working. Just like with the layers, the levels. If it's working for you, then just keep putting it on until you get it to the point where it doesn't work anymore, and then adjust again. That'd be good for the make little makeup artist thing. Oh yeah, here's where we went really warm. All right, good. Cool. All right. All right, guys. I think you may have won me on the curves. This actually worked really good for this particular image. But I still don't like when people say things are better. I feel like there's like different, not better. Right. I think we just ended here with. I think this is the end. I think we went into just like kind of a really warm, kind of clean portraity thing, just because it's always good to do that. Yeah, not liking that. There's a lot of catch light going on here. Okay. Quite okay. All right, that's too much reflector on the shot, clearly. I feel like I should have music playing or something. It's very quiet, or is it just me? Huge stone. I don't know what that means. How do I know when I'm done? How do I know when I'm done? That is a good question. I try not to spend more than a minute at most on an image, especially in the first rip through. Um, I feel like if it needs more than that, it's probably because I really screwed it up, and hopefully somewhere else in the shoot I did a better job. So yeah, like most of these that we're going through right now, I will do nothing else to. Like they are basically exactly how I would deliver them. Um, and then if she comes back and says, "Hey, can you fix this or this?" then I'll go in there and do it. Like I can see this. Like for instance, there's like a stray lash right here. I'm not going to fix that because unless she says I'm going to use this picture, why would I spend time doing that? Or if I really want to use it, so that I'd spend more time on. But like generally speaking, they're going to be fine like this. Um, so a minute or so. I mean, like you can see some of them not doing anything to it. It's like literally just. She's like, "What? You only spent a minute? What? Only a minute?" Yeah, I don't. But I'm also not really a retoucher. I don't consider myself a retoucher, and I very rarely do a lot of retouching. So I'm probably much different than most people. But I like to think that I'm done as soon as I take the picture. This is all just tweaking, just to get for final delivery. Because when you're shooting raw, you know, uh, you have that ability to just kind of finesse it. It's kind of like when we used to shoot, film. When they go to make the actual print to give to the person or whatever, or when you go to scan it, there's always contrast tweaks and little bit of color tweak to get it the way that you kind of imagined it, because there's that kind of in between stage, and you get that with the raw image. You've got that extra space, so so you can do it. But like this one again, maybe a few works. I know people don't like that, but if you didn't like that, then I might come in here and be like, all right, well, let's see if we can kind of correct this a bit. Oh, that's pretty. Oh, it's weird that it took it from her forehead, but that looks pretty darn good. Okay. Yeah, and there you go. Done. I don't think I really do anything else to this. I mean, I know there's people that will go in here and be like, "Oh, this is not perfect," but I mean, I just think that's how lipstick looks on people, unless it's a lipstick ad, right? And like these smile lines are natural. These highlights are natural. I don't want anything else. Um, I just wouldn't, you know, because I think this is like I have it full screen on a large monitor, and it can barely pick out things. When somebody's looking at it on their phone, unless they go into it and they're just like, they're not going to notice every little tiny thing. So I just don't think for most portrait delivery you need to go crazy. That's just my own personal opinion. That's funny. It's only abandoned. That's probably true. I mean, I don't think that's true. Well, maybe true. Maybe I like the abandoned thing. Yeah, that's probably true. I abandon it once I'm done, right? For the next new thing. Okay, so now I'm going to hit 4 to make them all 4 stars. This is like the second part of the edit, right? So basically, if I've done it once and I've gone through, and by the way, guys, I used to do this differently. I used to just go through and not do any tweaking the first time. But what I found was some images I didn't like until I tweaked them, you know, because I'd look at it and be like, oh, I don't like it because it's really flat. But then once I did a tiny tweak, I liked it better. So now when I do my editing, I always do the first edit. It takes me a little bit longer because I'm tweaking as I go. But now I'm not going to do anything unless I really see a difference I don't like. I've made everything 4 stars, and I'm going to come over here and go 4 or higher. And now if I don't like an image, right, or if I don't think that it's going to move forward, it's not so much that it's not good anymore. It's more like, okay, this isn't one of the best ones. I'll hit 3, right? But like that, I'm not loving that pose, you know. Or if there's just too many of something, or if they're too similar. Like I kind of like that, but I just feel like that's stronger. So boom, gone, right? And actually, now that I'm looking at this, I might make this a little brighter. Yeah, you know, this has makeup mess up, so there you go. Right here, this looks a little bit too saturated, so I'm going to drop that a little bit, and I'm going to come back, bring it up. So now this is kind of my second edit, right? And I'm going to make this, and part of this too is affected by what I saw later on in the shoot, right? Because maybe at the beginning of the shoot, I loved this shot, let's say, but then when I got down like 5 or 6 frames further, there was a better one. So now I'm like, well, I don't really like that one as much anymore, you know? So, you know, there's way too much top of the head in this one, so I'll get rid of that, and then we keep that one. You know, and we can just go through, and that's basically it. Like, I will come through. And again, depending on your subject and how well you know them and what you feel like you want to deliver, what you told them they'd get, you know, you can be more or less ruthless as you go through these things. Like I know that Narlan is watching this, so she's gonna want every single picture. So like, no, but I mean we're friends, so I'm gonna give her like the silly ones and the stuff in between. You may not do that to a random client. You know, you might feel like it's not a good idea. By the way, this is super important. And again, like if we look at this image, which I'm gonna go back and fix that highlight, but and then we look at this one, and we look kind of under the eyes, right? You see the difference there? That has to do with the angle of the light. So if you really have to get something as perfect as possible in camera, what you really want to do is be very cautious or how you pose somebody to the light. And the thing is, if they really want to pose a certain way, they can. You're just going to adjust your light so that it matches it, so that you get it basically where it needs to get, to eliminate any of that kind of weirdness that you'll get if you don't do that. Like that's basically it, right? So like if I knew I couldn't retouch her and she did that and I just went and put her chin down, now like we're good, right? I don't have to do that. There is too much highlight coming on her nose though. So I think I'm gonna do a little highlight recovery there. Actually, I might bring my, here we go guys, I'm gonna do curves again. Again, here's where curves can be very useful. When you want to just like tweak. Like see how I'm bringing just the nose. Yeah, that looks good. I'm blowing it up because if I do it too much, you're gonna start to see gray. You see how it's graying? And I don't want that. So I need to be careful about what parts I get. And the higher up on the curve I am, like the more of just the light I'm going to get. But at the same time, if I'm too far up, then it's gonna look weird because it's gonna separate from the kind of the color of her skin on around her nose. Because of course there's no color in that white blown up part. So I'm kind of going back and forth and just like I'm constantly jiggling it back and forth to make sure. Yeah, like that flattened it way too much in my opinion. So I might actually roll that back a bit. The other thing you can do too is you could do this as a, oh yeah, okay, let me do that. You could actually do this as an adjustment layer. I mean, I suppose if you use Photoshop, you probably know this, right? So I can actually go in and I can go here and go new filled adjustment layer because that means they'll do it to everything. I'm just gonna do it to the whole thing. Again, you could paint out just the nose, but I could do this And then I could do my curve thing that I just did there. Well, hold on. I gotta lock the middle in. You want to lock that middle in, otherwise you're going to get some really like strange S curves when you do this. So I could, let's say, do that where I think it looks pretty good, maybe even go a bit too far. And then I can come up here and I can actually make this a lesser percentage, right? Oh, I can actually feather it. I can actually make this guy a little bit less. Let's see if I remember how to do it. Oh, you can save it as a style too. There you go, guys. Get you guys some styles. There we go, opacity. So I can kind of find my spot, right? Where it works. This is how, back when there was only like, I think there was like six, somebody told me who's older, that like when Photoshop first had layers, there was like a limit to it. So I think it was 5 or 6. So you couldn't do like the subtlety that you do now with like retouching. So you'd have to like really overdo it, and then you would just drop the opacity. That was like what most people did when they were trying to kind of retouch something out. Like you just use the opacity as kind of an extra little tool in between. But there you go, right? We were able to do it on an adjustment layer, and that looks much better. And I have the control there. So again, I'm just going through now. I'm hitting 3 on anything that I'm not loving, and that's basically what we would do. Uh-oh. No, I don't usually crop and capture one. I hardly crop anything. I mean, I pretty much deliver unless somebody wants something delivered as a certain format. Like if somebody says to me, "Hey, I want it, 16 by 9," then obviously I'll crop it. But I try to shoot the image the way I like it. Every once in a while I'll crop something, but not that often. That's actually the beauty of the way we work now. I think is that your delivery, right, almost doesn't matter because people are going to crop it for a million different formats anyway. So you kind of have to just shoot it and just live with it as it is. And then if it needs to be cropped. Now that being said, if you did have a job, like if she said, "Oh, this is going to be an 8x10 headshot," let's say, then what I would have done was while I was shooting it, I would have put a crop on it, right? Because you can do that. You can set your crop here. And then what would happen is, if you did that, every image that you applied that to would get it, right? So I could crop that 8x10 and then I could just repeat them. That's normally what I would be doing. And there we go. Yeah. It actually looks pretty good 8x10, but I'll leave it the way it was. Remove that crop. There we go. Cool. All right, yeah. So this is pretty good. I don't think I actually need to go back through these too much, but some of them I might decide I don't really love once I'll just do it really quickly. Like I said, when you talk about like how long, right? It's really just a matter of, and of course, a lot of times there's subtle differences, and if you're working with somebody who's new or a client, you want to make sure that they're only getting shots that you like. If you don't know their taste or whatever, you can be a little bit more particular about how many you get rid of. And I think that's really the thing. I don't recommend ever like saying a certain number of images that you should deliver. I know people sometimes ask for that. People tell me all the time, "Oh, but people will say, how many pictures am I going to get?" I generally don't try to do that when I'm dealing with people. I talk about sessions more in the either the number of looks that we'll shoot or the amount of time that we'll kind of be together versus how many images in the end that they get, because I don't really deliver retouched images anyways. I don't have to worry about that. If retouching is a big part of what you do and you deliver finished retouched images, then you probably want to obviously have a number set there, because you wouldn't want somebody to expect that they're going to get. I mean, we shot 135 images here. We're not going to retouch every image, but they're basically tweaked. They're basically good. And so far, audio and stuff's been good, right, guys? I have only 122 drop frames, so that's very, very good, 0.1%, which if you guys remember from before, when I first started doing that, I was using OBS. I was dropping like half the frames. All right. Let's see. It is 4:17. I think that's probably a good place to end. Any other questions before I bail out of here? Let me show you how to export them. This could be devastating. I'm just gonna say this. I've tried to export before when I was live, and the whole thing like crashed. So I'll say goodbye now because it might crash when I do this. But let me just show you how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna come over to my process sequence, and I have this process here. If you've seen it, if you go on my YouTube channel, Dana Norton Photographer, you will see how I set these up. But I'll just kind of quickly go through it. This one's called Models Dropbox, and what it does is it creates a JPEG, right? An sRGB, because that's always how you want to deliver it to like the general public. 2,000 pixels on the long end. Right? I always do long end. I don't do a fixed number. I do long end because just in case I do crop it, right? So long end. I don't set an open width because I don't know what their software is that they've got. And then over here, it's going to place it in the root folder models, which is in my Dropbox. It's going to create a subfolder with document name, and document name is the name of the shoot. So it's going to be called the date on set, that's basically what it was. And then it's going to do, it's going to respect the crop. If I did do that, it's not going to sharpen it because, oh God. It's going to keep all the metadata because I want all the metadata there. And it's going to not put a watermark because watermarks are the devil. So we do all this. And then what will happen is every image that's selected, when I hit process, it will make a version of it there like that, right? If I also wanted, let's say, a 4,000 pixel version, I could click that one as well because it can do multiple at the same time. But I'm not going to do that because that's a large image. Okay, somebody's writing to me. Nothing exciting. Okay. Yeah, so I will be back next Sunday. Thanks, guys. I will try to be more consistent with these. I know I said in one of my YouTube videos that I was going to do more stuff starting February, which is tomorrow. I've been doing a lot of back end work. That's why you haven't really seen me. So hopefully in February we'll start getting a lot more content out there, and it should be fun. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to hit export, and if it crashes, then I'll see you next time. And if not, then I'll say bye again, I guess. Process. No, it's doing it. Yeah, it is. Okay. And we can see it's doing it. How's my thing doing? My drop in frames? No, so far so good. All right. Wow, thanks, Dave. Like Dave really hooked me up with this because I'll tell you, it was crashing like crazy. And I gotta tell you what I did. A bit of drop frames now. It says 122 total. Yeah, the every place I looked said do not use the hardware processor if you're on a Mac. And so I didn't do it because every place said not to do it. And Dave was like, no, that's what I do. And I did it and it worked. So like I've been listening to these like random forums about trying stuff. That should go to tell you, I guess, what I was going back to earlier. And I said, there's no right way to do something. You got to try different stuff. You want to take advice from people that, clearly have done stuff, but also consider your situation because everybody's a little bit different and you want to use what works best. But yeah, looks like we're good. We're not really dropping frames and it is processing. My computer didn't crash. It is going kind of slow, but that's fine. And I will see you next time. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful. And again, if you don't already, follow me over there on Twitch so you can join the conversation. Most Sundays we're live editing in Capture One and just talking about stuff. And if you don't subscribe here, obviously, go ahead and do that so you get my other videos and ring the bell for all the notifications. I'll see you next time.